and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer, the internet's only nuclear deterrent to the Dice Tower. My name is Cody, and I recently found out that this Christmas we're going to see the conclusion of a trilogy of French films called L'Aubé. And L'Aubé is about a little person called an Aubé who apparently is, his name was Bilbo Baggins, and Bilbo was traveling to a place called the Lonely Martin. And at the Lonely Martin, he would fight a dragon called Smough. And after he fought Smough, there was a giant battle between 5 different armies. Le bataille des 5 armies. I don't know exactly how it's all pronounced. What's that? It's not French. It's not a French film. It's not a French film. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I never know with words that end with a T. Apparently it is called The Hobbit, The Battle of the 5 Armies. And now Armies Games has just released a kind of a tie-in based on their War of the Rings game. So this one is called The Battle of 5 Armies.
Ancient Greek mythology to Roman lore as well. There's a creature kind of creepy, but he's got some sex appeal. He stands at 9'7", and you'll never hear him talk. He's only got one eye, but he really likes to rock. They say he runs the village, that's the what if he did. Don't be so judgmental about the Cyclops kid. He's got a tiny temper and an itty-bitty fuse. If you're the one who lit it, then you're probably gonna lose. Mysterious and mighty with a really killer mind. Lives in a volcano making weapons for the gods. They say he ain't a baby, so what if he did? Don't be so judgmental about the Cyclops kid.
In the Battle of 5 Armies, one player will take on the role of the various free peoples of Middle-earth. Dwarves, elves, men, eagles. And, of course, the other player will take on the role of the Shadow Armies, consisting of orcs, goblins, wargs, bats, and lawyers. Now, when these 2 armies go to battle, it is epic. Apparently, what's going on in the game is this evil Shadow Army is attempting to conquer Lonely Mountain and various outlying settlements, while the Free Peoples are trying to defend them. Now, the very first thing you're going to do on a turn is each player is going to take an event card and a story card. Event cards can affect gameplay. Story cards can too, but there's a bit more of a narrative effect there, and they are individualized to each army. Then, what is going to happen is the Free Peoples player, he can choose to activate certain characters. These characters are independent of the army, and they are characters from the film, like Thorin Oakenshield, Gandalf the Wizard, and Bilbo Baggins himself. You can spend these tokens to activate them, and that means that during your turn, you can actually spend that action token to do what their special power, their special ability is during the turn. Now, the Free Peoples player, after he spends these activation tokens, he can also put a similar number of leadership tokens on the board for his armies. And leadership tokens with armies give certain advantages to your armies in the game. But the Free Peoples player may not want to use all of his kind of tokens on his characters, because if he does that, it gives the Shadow player something of an advantage. Because then what is going to happen is the Shadow player reaches into some kind of an opaque bag or cup, and they're going to draw out fate tokens. Now, fate tokens have numbers on them that move the fate tracker up the fate track. Now, this is important because there are 15 spaces along the fate track. And if ever the fate marker gets to the 15th space, the Free Peoples immediately win. So the Shadow player wants this to happen as slowly as possible. When he reaches into this bag and he pulls out a fate token, he can reach in again and pull out another token, and he can keep doing that as many times as the Free Peoples player activated his generals. And in that way, he can try to hope for lower tokens, but he always has to go with the last one he pulled out. Now, also, in addition to the number that the fate track moves up, it may also allow the Free Peoples player to draw a fate card, which may give him some other advantages. And then also, critically, at certain times along that fate track, it's going to activate certain characters. It's going to allow certain characters to actually come into the game, like Bilbo, like Thorin, like the King of the Eagles, and like Beorn, the Skin Changer. And they're all very powerful, and they can be very, very powerful reinforcements later in the game. After that, the Shadow player can place leadership tokens on his armies equal to the number of activation dice that he has. More on that later. But also, critically, he can, instead of putting the leadership tokens out, he can actually put bats in certain territories. Not just in the regions where the armies exist, but entire territories where they're moving through. And that can also give certain advantages to his armies in combat. Next is the action round. Both players are going to roll their activation dice, and usually the Shadow player has more, but not necessarily always. You're going to roll these dice, and these dice have certain symbols on them. You may get an army symbol, which allows you to move or attack with your armies. You may get a muster symbol, which allows you to muster armies, get more recruits for your armies. You may get a character symbol. This allows you to do special abilities with your characters. There are several other symbols, and each symbol has several options that you can choose from in order to use. But you are limited in the actions you can do to what your role is. If you do choose to attack another enemy, combat is pretty simple in this game. You look at the specific terrain on that region, and then you see who has the most units that favor that terrain. Whoever has the most gets an advantage. They get to draw immediately another event card that they could play in that turn. Essentially, you're each going to select an event card or a tactics card, a maneuver card from your units or event cards. And you're going to play that, and that's going to give you a certain advantage during the battle. Now, also, you're going to total up the total battle dice that each side has, but no more than 5. You're going to roll the battle dice, and you hit on 5s or 6s. Certain factors, like those cards you play, may mitigate combat. Now, once your score hits, you have to assign damage tokens to the opposing army. As soon as an army has more damage tokens than they have units in that army, they have to start removing units. Essentially, you remove 2 damage tokens for every 1 unit you take off. And that way you try to move down the number of damage tokens you have. After combat, you can attempt to rally and get rid of some of those damage tokens, but they can be very dangerous during a battle, and they can force you to lose a battle. Now, after one side or the other is eliminated or retreats, then the winning side, of course, can claim the victory there. The last thing that happens in a round, you determine whether or not anybody's got victory. If they haven't, you start to clean up tokens and get ready for the next round. Now, there are 3 ways for the Free Peoples to win this game. They win the game if they kill Balg, who is the only character that the Shadow player has on the board. If he dies, Free Peoples win. If the Fate track, ever gets up to 15, Free Peoples win. If the character of Bjorn enters and the Shadow army does not yet have 6 points, Free Peoples win. If, on the other hand, the Shadow player can take 10 points, he can win. And he gains points by taking settlements, by taking strategic locations throughout the board. So what do I think of the Battle of the 5 Armies? Well, this game is based on an earlier game, The War of the Rings. And that, of course, dealt with the events of the Lord of the Rings novels, the fight against Mordor from those novels and the movies. It's a very similar gameplay. The action, rolling for actions, the combat, all that is very, very similar. Now, I got to tell you, I've not really played the War of the Rings game. I've kind of toyed with it. I've kind of half-heartedly played through some of it to learn it, but I haven't really played that game, so I can't compare them as such. What I saw, I really liked. I hope to play War of the Rings, a real game of it, soon. But they seem very, very similar in many respects. However, I'm told the War of the Ring can be a very long game. It can be a 3 to 4 hour game. This game is about 90 minutes. So it's significantly less, and from what I understand, it's somewhat streamlined, which is very cool. I liked a lot about this game. Generally, the Free Peoples player is playing defense, while the Shadow Army is playing offense. And the Shadow Army has to move very fast. It has to move very quickly in order to take those strongholds and those settlements in order to win the game. Because if they wait too long, if they dawdle, the Free Peoples player are just going to get stronger. They're going to bring in those more powerful characters. When Bjorn arrives, he's going to be very, very, very powerful. And the Shadow Army just probably won't win. So they've got to move quickly if they want to gain victory here. That presents a good strategic challenge. And because you can only do actions based on the dice you roll, tough decisions. You've got to do the most with what you have, and that's a mark of a good game, and any game that can present you with tough decisions is for me, that's what gaming's all about, particularly in wargaming. And in a 2-player wargame like this that's slightly asymmetrical, that kind of heightens the tension. It heightens the stakes. And so that is very, very cool as well. I like, too, Gandalf's got the ranged power. He can fire, his magic and take stuff out. That's very cool. I like the little arc thing that they include with the game for that. That gives you a range, but it also kind of has this little thematic that looks like he's attacking people, which is really cool. I like the artwork, and just let me say for a second here, production-wise, this game knocks it out of the park. This is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful production. The minis are fantastic. The cards are great. The board's beautiful. Just, as far as I'm concerned, they did. They knocked it out of the park. Ares Games did a fantastic job production-wise. And I think gameplay matches. It's a good, solid war game that is highly thematic. This feels like you are playing a game straight out of Tolkien. And I can't think of a better praise than that. This is a fantastic game. Really enjoyed it. A whole lot of fun. This is the Battle of Five Armies from Ares Games. And the Discriminating Gamer says, undoubtedly, buy it!
Let me tell the history of how the monster died. He had no depth perception because he only had one eye. He didn't see it coming when arrows did him in. And for the murder of the beast, spent 1 year in the pen. They say he made out with your mom, so what if he did? Don't be so judgmental about the Cyclops kid. Yes, it did.
Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment here on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, on our website, thediscriminatinggamer.com. We ask you to please, please, please like us on Facebook and subscribe to us on YouTube. We are The Discriminating Gamer, and whoop! Where'd he go?
Please somebody help me on my feet again. And I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band. God knows that I love to fight, but I don't...
For realsies?